Hi, guys. I am coming to you from Tuesday night, actually. I usually record these in the morning on the day of the lesson, but we are getting back into the heart and back into Anna Garcia and to our regular curriculum. And so I wanted to make sure that I had a little bit of a quiet environment to talk to you guys and give you kind of a little mini lecture. You don't need to write these notes down, just listen and you can use them and reference them when you are going through the assignment. But I wanted to make sure that I was uninterrupted. Um, and it is about 9:15 on Tuesday night, and everybody in my house is asleep. My kids go to bed around 8, and my husband Brian, he usually works from home anyway, so he's used to working from home, but he usually travels, and he doesn't usually have two kids and a wife home while he's working. And so he's been getting up super early to try and get a couple hours in before everyone wakes up in the house. So he is also asleep. So I'm sitting here at my kitchen counter or kitchen table by myself, and we get to chat about heart health. So we've already talked about the way the heart functions and the structures of the heart. We looked at a couple of different labs. We looked at our heart rate, our blood pressure, the EKG, so the rhythm of our heart, the electrical signal that's being sent out. And now we're going to look at kind of what happens when the heart is not functioning the way that it should be. So, heart disease and heart health. And when you think about heart disease and somebody having a heart attack, one of the things you should think about or associate with is the buildup of cholesterol. So, this lesson, you are going to do some research and add your answers to the hyperdoc that we linked about cholesterol. And before you do that, I wanted to give you a little bit of a refresher about fats. So, fats or lipids was part of our macromolecules that we looked at. We actually build those puzzle pieces. You guys remember building those puzzle pieces of our clap-in molecules, carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. Well, each of these macromolecules have a monomer, right? It has a building block that you string together to make that chain. So for carbohydrates, it's glucose, proteins, amino acids, and nucleic acids are nucleotides, right? That sugar phosphate base. I'm not going to get up and do it right now. I'm too tired. But think about me running around the room saying sugar phosphate base. The one that stands out is lipids. So for lipids, they don't actually chain together, but we look at the monomer or the building block as a fatty acid. We built the triglyceride, that structure with the glycerol and then remember? So tri would be three of the fatty acids. So there are a few different types of fatty acids. The first type of fatty acid that we looked at, these were the yellow um, puzzle pieces that we looked at, and one of them was straight, and one of them had a little kink in it. The saturated, the saturated fat was the straight one. So saturated just means like full of. So if you look at those carbons right here, so these carbons, they all are able to hold four bonds. So you got one, two, three, four. So each of these carbons right here in this chain of saturated fat are full of hydrogen. So they all, each of the bonds are completely full of hydrogen. So saturated fat is straight and it's solid at room temperature. So saturated is straight and solid. So the solid at room temperature, you may see this with your animal fats. Like if you have steak for dinner one night and then you put it in the refrigerator as leftovers, you pull it out the next morning, it's got that kind of like white film on the top. That's saturated fat. When it sits at room temperature, it is solid. And that's why it's associated mainly with animal fats, lard, butter, cream, cheese, all that kind of stuff. So that's the stuff that you want to avoid is the saturated fats. The healthier option is the one with that little kink in it. So for unsaturated fats, that has that little kink in it. And if you see right here, that kink is caused by the double bond. So right here in between these two carbons, there's a double bond which leaves a space and takes away a hydrogen. So they're not completely saturated with hydrogen. There's space. So for this one, there is one double bond. So we say it's a mono unsaturated. And then down here, you can see 1, 2, 3 double bonds. So that's a polyunsaturated. So mono meaning one, poly meaning many. So you can have more than one of these little kinks of where the double bond is happening. And unsaturated fats, because of that kink, they're going to be liquid at room temperature. And these are mainly coming from plants, so vegetable oil, olive oil, things like that. If you remember, we kind of did a demo where I had people stand up in the middle of the room, and we all, when you stand really straight, we could squish together. And that was representing that solid saturated fat when you're all able to kind of stack right on top of each other and become very solid. But as soon as you add that kink, right, and everyone's kinked, then you have to have more space in between them. And so that kink makes it so it's more liquid and they can't stack right on top of each other and become solid. And then the third type that you may have heard about is trans fats. And you see this a lot on packaging where it says like no trans fats. Well, that's because trans fats have been proven to be really unhealthy for you. And what they do is they do a process called hydrogenation, which is when they take the liquid saturated or unsaturated fat and they add in that double bond and they turn it to solid. And a couple reasons why they would do this is because, first of all, it makes the food taste good, right? So you find it in a lot of processed foods that it increases their shelf life so that they have like a longer expiration date. And then the other thing that you see this in is fried foods. And the reason why they use it in fried foods is because you can reuse that trans fat again and again and again for a longer amount of like shelf life before they have to replace it. So if you're a fast food place, you're going to use trans fat to fry your food in so that you don't have to replace it as often. So, but it is very unhealthy for you. And what happens, I don't know if you can see that. I need to exit. What happens is that by eating trans fats, ooh, I don't know if you can see this. Hold on. I'm not starting again. I've started again like 4 times. By eating trans fat, it raises, oof, I don't know if you can see that. Hold on. I'm just going to do this. So it raises your LDL levels, which you're going to research and find out what LDL levels are. It lowers your HDL levels. And between those two, it increases your risk for heart attack. So it basically is going to increase your bad cholesterol and lower your good cholesterol. And between those two, it's going to increase your risk for heart attack. So there's actually some states that have said you're not allowed to use trans fats in any kind of products anymore. So it's kind of interesting. And then finally, the last little slide that we got here is how to be heart healthy. So to eat more heart healthy if you have possibly like a family history of heart attack, or you have diabetes, or you're overweight, or you're not exercising. The diet that you can do to help is more fruits and vegetables. Choose whole grains. That's going to help lower your cholesterol. Low fat dairy, so cheeses or milks or like yogurts that are all low fat, and then as far as your meat that you're choosing, try and choose fish or poultry because it's lower in that saturated fat than red meats. So that is your little mini lesson that will go along with lesson 3 and the hyperdoc asking you to research cholesterol. If you have any questions, put them on the discussion board or send me an email. And I hope you guys have a good Wednesday. And hopefully, I will see you on Thursday for our next Google Meet. I think I might do a Zoom. We'll see. Um, it was nice to see your faces today. And I hope that I see more of you on Thursday. Okay, bye.